On paper, there's not much not to like. Double negative, so on paper there's a lot to like. Welcome back to the Scale Builders Guild. Thanks again for watching. Today we're taking a first look, run, and review of the new Rebel RC RJ Rebelcon. Here it is. It's not a Jeep. Okay? Let's just get that out of the way right now. It's not a Jeep. But it kind of looks like. Anyway, this is a rebranded model for the North American market from Rebel RC. And if you're not familiar with Rebel RC, they are a new retailer on the market, but run by some very old people. Not old, but seasoned in this hobby. Jeff Johns, formerly of Axial Racing, one of the founders of that company, now heads up Rebel RC. And I think that we will see a lot more from Rebel in the future. I think this is only just the beginning. This is essentially a rebranded Absema. It goes by a few other names as well. But this is slightly modified and upgraded for the North American market for Rebel RC. There are a few things on this truck that you won't find on other models. And being that most of us here are in North America, there were no other options. It was a lot harder to get either the Yikong or the Absema models here, so this one has hit the market. And on paper, like I said in the intro, there is a lot to like about it. There are a few things that I will probably not like because they're just things that I don't like. That's just how I am. But there are a lot of features in this truck, and I will try my best to go over all of them. Starting out, looks pretty nice. It's a good looking truck. It's a little bit smaller in terms of its overall scale to, say, its competitors from Axial or Traxxas, but it is a very close representation of a certain 4x4 off-road enthusiast's vehicle. Painted on the inside and outside to give it that matte finish. Please excuse how filthy it is. I really wanted to get a good sense of how it performs before doing this actual review, and there will be running footage throughout this video so you can get a good sense of how it performs in its natural environments. A couple of things to mention right away. It has a lot of features. It is a unlockable, lockable diff truck. So there are servos actuating cables to unlock and lock both the front and rear differentials. It is a 2-speed truck, so there is another servo powering that. And it actually has a pretty good ratio between first and second. Second gear being ludicrous speed on 3S. Speaking of, it is 3S LiPo capable. I'm going to assume a Hobby Wing OEM'd ESC that powers this truck. And lots of nice scale details. Let's be honest, there's lots of molded parts here. We've got a full roof rack here, snorkel, hood clips, door handles. What else have we got? Some light pods here, wipers, rear view mirrors, light bar up front as well. Nice big front Stinger style bumper with some, what do we got here? D-rings that I've already broken off. Some turn signals in there. Full light kit, which is a pretty spectacular light kit, I might add. Running boards here on the side. Let's flip it around to the back so you get a good sense of all the accessories they include on the back. This thing needs a lot of fuel. There's even a rear wiper plastic molded piece there. You've got your high lift jack and a fire extinguisher as well. Nice molded rear bumper as well. And good looks. Like, it's a good looking truck. When you get the truck out of the box, it does come with this very aggressive angry eye grille. Not my personal choice, but it's there. And it's funny, you know, when I was looking at it, when I took it out of the box, I said, gosh, you know, I wonder what's under there. And I took it off, and what do you know? I'm not counting how many slots there are. Another thing you might notice, no body clips. This is a hinged truck, so there is a magnet. There is a couple of very strong magnets that hold the front down there, and that reveals a hinged rear body mount, which I think is a great addition. Okay, let's see if we can't get this positioned in such a way that we can see under the truck. There we go, and get a good look at what's inside. So for all accounts, a pretty familiar layout to the chassis. We've got plastic shock towers, machined aluminum chassis rails. They're not C-channel. 2-speed transmission, motor mounted up front, not as high as some models, so it is sitting a little bit lower in the chassis. ESC up front here. Big battery tray in the back, which is capable of holding a 5,000 milliamp 3S pack without any trouble. We've got a steering servo up front here somewhere. Oh, right, servo mounted on axle, actually. So not the most scale representation possible, but a nice sturdy location that will certainly aid in steering. We've got another shifter here for the 2-speed. We've got 2 shifting servos over here for the front and rear diff lock and unlock mechanism. These shocks are aluminum bodied and aluminum caps with a plastic retainer for the screw. So nice little bit of design work there, and a very nice shock, I will say. It actually has a pretty smooth motion, and I found it performing pretty well. It soaked up a lot of the bumps. Plastic front bumper, like I said earlier, Rebel logo emblazoned on the actual chassis rails, probably laser engraved, which is a nice little touch there. Underneath the body there is a QR code, and I'm not sure what that QR code goes to, but let's find out what it goes to. It goes straight to rebelrc.com. Well, there you go. Full light kit, like I said, tons of wiring in order to get all that to happen. This is a 550 can brushed motor. I'm not sure of the turn count, but I'm going to guess around a 27 turn because it is a fairly lively vehicle, and that is something that I think could probably count against it. It is a fast truck. It's got a lot of speed, and the ESC, while it does have a crawler mode, it doesn't have a ton of great range in terms of the throw. So it's a little bit of on or off. So there is a little bit of control issue, I would say. That's probably the best way of putting it. Otherwise, it's a very nicely laid out chassis. It's a little, if you put a big 5,000 milliamp pack back here, it is going to offset sort of the weight of the front, and you might find that it does want to tip over a little bit more. It is a portal axle, so its center of gravity is still quite high in relation to other trail trucks on the market, but because of those locking and unlocking diffs, there is a fair bit of weight down low, which definitely helps in aiding its performance. On a cosmetic level, these inner fenders are Lexan. They are not molded plastic, so definitely a little bit of a cheaper option there, but they do the job. They're painted and they look good, and they keep you from being able to see inside the body. That said, on this body there is no interior, so you do see all of the electronics if you look in the windows. On the orange version, the windows are clear. On the gray or silver version of this truck, those windows are fogged, so you can't see in. So keep that in mind if you are really keen to see inside or possibly put an interior in at a later date. Go for the orange, unless you like elbow grease. Rebel also includes a thumb screw that you can screw in from underneath in case you don't want to rely completely on the magnets keeping the body down. And in a tumble, those magnets will let go no matter how strong they are, so it's nice to have that additional thumb screw to keep everything in place. Let's take a look at the underside of the chassis, because I think there are some interesting things that we can note there. Okay, first things first. All metal links, nice aluminum links here. Metal drive shafts, which is not something you often see at this price point or this entry into the market, so that's very cool to see. Everything's pretty well hidden. This skid does sit a fair bit lower than the chassis, and you can see that it's seen a little bit of scraping on rocks, but nothing too bad there. Certainly hasn't hurt performance as much as some other skids on other trucks. In order to make sure those portal boxes were going to clear, Absema or whoever originally made this truck decided to make it a 1.9 on the outside and a 2.2 on the inside. Really interesting choice there on the beadlock. And really limits your tire choices if you're going to keep these wheels, which most people probably won't, because these tires aren't the best. They're okay. They're pretty decent for a stock tire. I didn't find them to be all that ridiculously not grippy. They definitely worked pretty well, even in cooler temperatures where I was running this truck. They are definitely vented as well, You know how I know? Because they're full of water. I did do some running in some wet conditions. And this is the only downside to a vented tire or to a vented wheel on the inside, is that you get giant puddles on your workbench. But we're not going to count that one against the truck. That is just user error. Another interesting quirk on the underside of the chassis here. 4-link front, like I said, servo mounted on axle for ultimate bump steer. And a 5-link rear in the back. So like I guess it's another panhard. And I know that some trucks have this in real life. I'm not sure of the purpose, but there it is. Definitely a quirk. I honestly, I don't know why they needed to add that. So that's a question for Jeff, maybe. Now here's the other quirk, pricing. This does slot right in between some of its competitors, and that kind of makes me question things a little bit. What about this truck is going to make you choose it over, say, a TRX-4 or an Axial SCX-10-3 or even an Element RC? In my mind, this truck, because of all of the features that it has and sort of the layout of the chassis and portal axles and whatnot, it really is competing against the TRX-4. And there is not a significant price gap between the two of them to make one less or more desirable in my mind. If anything, parts support is going to be a bit more challenging, I'm sure, because this is coming from overseas. With that price differential, you do get some added bonuses that don't come on many TRX-4s out of the factory. So full light kit is one thing for sure. Nice detailed body could also be argued as well for the Rebelcon, but most of the other features are already found on the other trucks. So it kind of will come down to your personal preference and if you're willing to take a bit of a risk on something that is a little bit different from everything else. And that's initially why I wanted to get this truck on the bench and have a good look at it and spend some time with it. Is what's the value proposition here? What are we looking at? How is this going to affect the market? And more so than anything, I think this is a great example of a company that wants to get involved in a market and use something that already exists, make a few upgrades. I know the servo is one of the places they upgraded. The chassis is another place they made some upgrades. Links, I think, is another thing. And just general quality of components, I think, has been upgraded over any of the other models that you can get that has this chassis layout or manufacturer, whatever you want to call it. This is slightly modified in order to make it a little more desirable for the North American market. But ultimately, what I think this is this is Rebel's first step. And sometimes when you are starting something new, it's best to take baby steps. I think for Rebel, this is an opportunity to get some capital together to start manufacturing and designing their own stuff. So if you believe in this company and you want to see more in the future, maybe take a risk on it, like I did. I didn't really know what I was going to get, and ultimately it's pretty decent. There are a few things. The ESC really is kind of junk. I wasn't really thrilled with that. Otherwise, it's pretty great. There were a few things that kind of tripped me up. Let me get the remote. Here's the remote that comes with the Rebel RC Rebelcon. Pretty decent remote for all intents and purposes. 6 channels, believe it or not, which is pretty crazy. It does need a lot of these though, and most of them are set up pretty well. I will say that I did miss the second gear switch because I didn't read the manual, because I'm dumb, but it's right down here. Yeah, so that's to switch into second gear. This is to lock and unlock your differentials, front and rear. There's your lights and the options for turning those on and off. You can have blinking, which is seizure inducing, among other things. The turn signals, I did not figure out how to turn those off, so not a big fan of that kind of light kit. Plastic wheel, but it has enough grip on there. And then underneath here, all your options for analog adjustments of endpoints and stuff like that. Pretty decent remote, I will say. And lots of features on this truck. I did find that because that ESC isn't all that precise, it does tend to kind of just be a bit jerky. in its stop-start kind of motion. But it handles itself quite well on the rocks. It did pretty well and really looks good while doing it. So if you're willing to take a chance on something a little bit different and help move a company forward, this might be a really good way for you to go. All right, so there you go. That's the first look, run, and review of the Rebel RC RJ Rebelcon. Lots of features on there. Definitely worth checking out. What is the one must-have feature that you need on your next RC, trail truck, crawler, whatever it may be? Put your comments down below. You know I love reading through your feedback, and I try to answer as many of them as I can. And if you're enjoying this video, you like reviews, hit the like button. Subscribe if you haven't already, and ring that notification bell so you get updates anytime there's a new video from the Scale Builders Guild. I think that's going to do it. Let's let this video play out with a little bit of running footage. Thank you so much for watching. See you again soon.
Front of the other, gas can't feel to the ground. You got 1 foot in front of the other, hair blowing back in the wind. You say you don't recognize me, but you don't know where I've been. I got 1 foot in front of the other, gas can't feel to the ground. Just take your time. Just take your time. Front of the other